Yeah, anyway, I
Would
will
be
start to, if it will be a wrong picture, I will correct. I will say my anecdote firstly. Anyway, he appears in many Oxford debate as the Muslims were never radical. They were only radical after Iraq War in 2005 and so on. There was no radicalism beforehand ever, and all. That's him? No, a different guy. Let me
okay.
search. I would search and speak very quickly. So
Sounds good.
anyway, he's have all this soft wokeness in this Cambridge, Oxford debate and so on, all these post-colonial woke talking points.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a leaked video of him 7 years ago in some mosque in Tunisia or something, carrying a sermon. He basically says all the kuffars are animals, the heretics are barely human beings, in shouting, absolutely lunatic shouting rant. This is Muslim Brotherhood 101. Appears as woke light when he called all the kuffar animals.
Never. And we never lose the moral high ground. If we know anything of Shias of Muhammad, as Shias of Ali, as Shias of Hassan, as Shias of Hussein, we know that keeping the moral high ground is key. Once we lose the moral high ground, we are no different from the rest of the non-Muslims, from the rest of those human beings who live their lives as animals, bending any rule to fulfill any desire. Once we do that, we are lost. Islam, to believe is to know. To disbelieve is not to know. That is what it fundamentally comes down to. It is to remain ignorant, to cover up knowledge. After all, what is kafir? Kafir comes from the root word, which means to cover up, to conceal. The kafir is the one who covers up that knowledge which is clear. The French Orientalist scholar Lamens, he once wrote that the Quran is not far from considering unbelief, disbelief, as an infirmity, as an illness, as a disease of the human mind. Subhanallah. Non-Muslims point this out to us. And of course the kafir, the disbelievers, the atheists who remain deaf and stubborn to the teachings of Islam, the rational message of the Quran, they are described in the Quran as, quote, a people of no intelligence. Allah describes them. Not of no morality, not of no belief, a people of no intelligence. Because they are incapable of the intellectual effort it requires to shake off those blind prejudices, to shake off those easy assumptions about this world, about the existence of God. In this respect, the Quran describes the atheists as cattle, as those who go with the crowd and do not stop and wonder about this world. All of these ulama unanimously agree that at the very minimum, if Yazid was not a kafir, then at the very minimum, he was a fasir, a transgressor, a breaker of Islamic laws, a corrupt individual, a tyrant, a killer, a drunkard, a dog lover, a music lover, a homosexual, a pedophile, a sexual deviant, someone who slept with his own mother, astaghfirullah. These are their views of these ulama in their books, not my view, not Imam Hussein's view, not Ayatollah Sistani's view. This is their view about Yazid. It's all there in black and white. Yet Allah should be pleased with such a man, astaghfirullah. Allah should be pleased with him. Indeed, the fact is, and this is important, Yazid is not simply a fasir. He was an out-and-out kafir.
Seriously, unironically.
Wow.
Wait, let me search.
So just going back to the woke judges in Israel, am I to understand from you guys that wokeness is also a disease in Israel?
Yeah,
Yes.
last week we got the translation of I am Jazz to Hebrew, the
Oh,
language
yeah.
of the Bible. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's coming from the West mostly. I mean, there's some I don't know if we should call them thinkers, but delusioners, I'll call them, that come up with ideas in Israel. But a lot of it, majority of it, comes from the West through media. Israelis are very influenced by Western media, so
Yeah, I remember from a friend of mine. Oh
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, we listen to the same music you
Yeah, I
probably
found I
do,
found a
more or
picture.
less. But we have our own music as well, which is like a fusion of West and East or something. But everybody knows, the big American, big British bands, the big names. They come to play concerts in Israel, so on. So yeah,
I
but we
found
also
a
we also get a little bit of the Turkish music and Arabic music, but
yeah,
not as much as the Western.
I
Okay.
found a picture of that fellow who appears a walk to Westerners and shout the kuffars are animals.
Oh yeah.
Shit. Yeah, let me search another thing very quickly.
Oh, Mehdi Hassan, that's it. Not Hamza Yusuf is a different person. Mehdi Hassan.
Oh, Mehdi Hassan. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How long do you think the sort of woke problem in Israel has been going on, and are people standing up to it, or are people backing down from it?
It's really hard to say. It's not as bad in Israel, in my opinion. It's really hard to say when, but sometimes you see things that you say, oh, this is it. It's come. It's here. Like you see suddenly BLM in Israel. We think, hey, we never had slavery. We never had any of those things. The only black people we have are people we brought over to rescue them from a civil war in Ethiopia or some other
Uh,
crisis. I can't remember. So, and they're not slaves or anything.
yeah,
They
yeah,
get
yeah.
unemployment benefits and housing and so on. And so,
yeah, but American style wokeness, I think, entered Israeli politics since 2016, more or less. There is always
Yeah.
a bit of delay until it comes here.
I'd say probably 15. Yeah, about 15, 2015.
I think
But it's
when Trump came in, there was a big change in everything. The attitudes change. It's hard to say when something like that starts. I think you could even go back and say it started in the 70s in Israel.
yeah. Wow. Yeah, I guess
in
it's
in a,
just
in
like
a sense, because that's you could say that the same thing about Britain or
yeah.
you know or America. You could see the beginnings of the whole thing because what we're witnessing now is the conclusions to this kind of thinking.
Yeah, yeah. I saw somebody online, a Jewish guy online, who was talking about that Israel needs to abandon its allyship with the West and find allyship with an Eastern Bloc country. Do you agree with that? And what are your thoughts?
I
Uh, I understand his sentiment. Many Israelis are starting to become very weary of this ultra tight allyship with America because of the Nick Fuentes morons and the Obama creeps and so on, and all the wokeness and the cultural subversion we are importing from being imported and so on.
Hmm.
But at this point, unless something very radical will happen, I don't think we need, as a founder in a bright day, to do it. Unless America will
Yeah.
deteriorate to a catastrophic degree or will become hostile towards us, only then.
I
Again,
agree. Yeah, go on.
yeah, because Israelis feel, as a whole, connection to the West, at least pre its corruption in the last decade. I'm speaking about the West as a whole, not currently.
Hmm.
Uh, Again, I will not say that the whole geopolitical manners on Earth revolve around Israel, but we truly believe, because of our size and threats, we will be in some sort of bloc. And
Mm.
if we believe the American bloc, after a while, it will harm to some degree America, and most Israelis feel a debt to America for uh, for spreading a lot of good in the world before the last decade, and
Hmm.
for accepting all the Ukrainian refugees in the 1880s, were massacred en masse, and the World War II and so on. So we feel debt to America. We don't want to join another bloc.
Okay, so you do feel indebted. You do feel indebted to America.
Yeah, but if they will keep harm us and treat us like trash and go against all of our most vital interests and so on, enough will be enough one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, Israel is very much capable to join to another bloc in a span of 10 years' time, slowly but surely. This is all this hard right nonsense. Israel without America will disappear tomorrow. I don't think they know. We had 10
They
days
just don't know
ago.
the history.
Yeah, we had 10 days ago a summit with most of the vital Arab leaders in the Middle East, and they asked Israel to form an Air Force Sky Defense Bloc, Defenses Alliance in the entire most of the Middle East: Israel, Morocco, Egypt, Bahrain, UAE. If it's Bahrain, the UAE, that in practice meaning as an open secret Saudi Arabia as well among them and so on. So yeah,
What for? I mean, an air
Iran.
defense. Oh, okay. Meaning that they don't need America, which could be the end of the petrodollar, which would be the
Yes.
end of America.
Yeah, one of the reasons of this summit was, again, the Arabs are fearing for their safety. Most of them have armies who are not used to warfare, and many of them who are used to warfare lost a lot. And also, they are furious with America. I don't think if many American listeners know, Saudi Arabia is heavily considering right now to kick you out. The Saudi want to kick you out. If
America
you keep,
or me? I'm British.
I'm not
Well-
well aware of how much Saudi-British relations. I know
But
about
America, but they want to kick America out.
Yeah.
They don't want to, but they will do it if they keep all this lunacy. All these Muslim Brotherhood operatives in the Democrat Party want to basically choke Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
They basically want to force Saudi Arabia to give in the Yemen civil war and let Iran take over Yemen. And the Saudis know, people who may not know, Iraq is 50% Shiite Arab Muslim. They could go in basically Putin style to Ukraine to rescue the Shiite Muslim in this year. By the way, I'm truly afraid they will do it because the West appeared like soft bitches in the Ukrainian situation.
Yeah.
So the Saudis know that Iranian, maybe in 2 years' time, will have Iranian Yemen, will have half of Iraq as the Iranian Iraq. Basically, that's mean two-front invasion borders prepared immediately. In this near
And
2 years,
and Syria, and they control Lebanon more or less. They together with Hamas.
and they do not even say to America, send soldiers. They just say, stop sanctioning us for fighting in Yemen. They want to conquer Yemen to make it as a base to invasion to Saudi Arabia. And the Democratic
If
Party
people look on the
sabotage
map,
it.
if you look on the map, this is
Yeah.
about trade routes. This is about, controllers of the seas. If you zoom out, you see that Yemen is at a very important position. It literally,
Go a
yeah,
bit higher.
yeah.
Go
Where
a
you
bit
are now, it's the straits there are very important. Going through this into the Suez Canal, this whole area is very important to the world, especially to Europe.
Yeah, also this will be crucial to the West. If Yemen will become Iran, if the Houthis win, the Houthis are just puppet of Iran, Iranian Yemen. They could shoot down any boat coming from the Far East to Europe from here. So
Yeah,
this
just
is
so people who don't
crucial.
know, Siva, just a second. People who don't know that narrow entrance to the exactly where your mouse is. That's Yemen and Djibouti, I believe, and
Yeah,
Eritrea,
Djibouti.
possibly.
Yeah, Eritrea.
So yeah, so these are very important points. That there's lots of people stationed there. There's French, there's Americans, there's all sorts of stuff going on there that we don't really get to hear about. That island on the right as well that you just had, not that one, but a bigger one, is also very
Sokotra.
important. No,
Yes.
to the right. Yeah, now you see it. Yeah, that one is
Sokotra.
also very important. Yeah.
It
So
was
they're fighting over
basically,
that. Yeah.
there is no fighting. The
Well, they
UAE,
took over. Yeah.
there was a coalition against the Houthis by the regular Sunni Muslims, and it was supported by the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Basically, 2 years ago, more or less, the UAE just hijacked this island and said, this is a price for us for helping you, we do not ask. So it was annexed into the UAE.
Yes, which is on
Wow.
the other side. Yeah. So
Yeah,
this whole
yeah.
area is very, very important. Even without the oil, I mean, forget the oil; it's still very important.
Go
A lot of,
a
a lot of
bit up
stuff goes through there.
more. Show Yemen as well at the same time, please. Yeah, you see the entire diagonal bottom half of Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Shiite population who are completely controlled by Iran. The Iraqi army do not have a say in this territory. The Shiite militia are stronger than the military.
Wow.
Iran, yeah, they attack the American embassy with rockets every week. The Shiite militias there, and
Jeez.
basically Iran could, in the near 3 years, enter this half who have most of the population will see them as liberators, unironically, not as the propaganda Putin spoke about Ukraine, but unironically,
Yeah.
they could do a put into this area in Iraq as well. Bam, you
Yeah.
have two-front invasion to Saudi Arabia. By the way, you want apocalyptic end times world war? See the grand Shiite Sunni war on Mecca. If and the Iranians are true radical, true believers. They will think they will have divine miracle, even if
They
they're
also have an old empire they would love to revive, and they hate the Arabs for destroying it. And they look down on the Arabs to this day. If you talk to a Persian and you let them know that you don't like Arabs, you'll see a smile on the face.
yeah,
Really?
they call them
Yes.
lizard eaters.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There is a lot of
So
hatred there.
yeah,
Yeah, you don't
and
know
it
how
goes
much.
back a long way. But rather than getting into the details too much, because I'm sure it can get very tedious for someone who's not involved. Basically, you got kind of three blocks. You got the Iran Shia bloc, and they want to basically control. They've got imperial ideas.
Yeah,
The
just
Saudis are more moderate in that respect. They just want to keep what's theirs because they're happy with what they've got.
I'm sure.
And the Muslim Brotherhood is the third force that wants all these borders gone and the whole thing to turn into a Muslim caliphate.
Okay.
And they will cooperate between them as well. But what you find is that the kingdoms in the Middle East are the most stable places. So where you could
Morocco.
go and visit and have a nice time and not worry too much. Morocco is one, Saudi, the Emirates.
But it often
Though,
seems to be the way, places that have monarchies, as much as people complain, those
yes,
places often seem to be the most stable places.
This is
especially just to
very
say,
edgy
yeah,
statement, but democracy does not suit Arabs in
yeah.
this age.
As
Yeah.
George Bush found out, right, when he tried to install democracy in Iraq. I mean, it's not working,
Yeah,
is it? It's not going
he,
well.
he should
But
have either make a copy paste non-psycho Saddam Hussein installed and leave, or split it into 6 different countries.
so
Wow.
a lot of people say, "Oh, of course they've got oil," but that's not true. Iraq has oil. Yemen, I believe, has oil. Syria has oil. Libya has oil.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
Morocco doesn't
everywhere.
really have oil. And as you know, the UK doesn't have oil.
Well, we have oil and
it's
gas up here. I think we're the second
yeah,
highest in
The
Europe.
Scotland
just
Independence Party.
oh, just a second. Hold on, give me a chance.
I'll
I let
come
you
back to
speak.
that. I'll come back to that.
Yeah,
But go
but that was discovered in the 80s, right? The UK was
the
standing on its own.
60s. The
Okay,
60s.
but sorry, but until the 60s, the UK was still, one of the biggest economies in the world. So
Yeah.
it's not just oil that is determining this. Some
Yes.
of
Yeah.
these countries, I believe Dubai doesn't really have oil. It's just run according to uh, a system that is more or less consistent with the culture and with the tribal laws, and a mixture of the tribal laws and Islam that suits the culture. So when you are the government, you're not asking people to change much from what they were doing anyway. You're already, so it's in accord with the culture. Where the revolutionary states like Syria, like Iraq, like Lebanon, also artificial creations, cannot run that way because they're not one tribe, they're not one nation. And the reasons, just another anecdote about Saudi, the reason it can be such a large country and still be a monarchy, because that can be difficult in the Middle East, is because the royal family, the Sauds, they married the daughters of all the heads of the tribes in the region. So that's why the Saud family is so massive and has inner fights, because that wife, all her children belong to one tribe. They kind of feel they're from one tribe and
Oh
from
yeah.
one region, right? But by unifying them all,
Yeah.
he created this, and this unification was not bloodless. So if the sheikh, the head, didn't want to give his daughter to the to the to the king, there would be trouble,
Yeah.
right?
Wow, that's
That's
interesting. I had no idea about that.
so yeah. It's a different place in a different time in its political evolution, and just
Yeah.
trying to say, oh, there you go, democracy is excellent, you're gonna love it.
Yes.
They don't really feel it suits their culture. It's
Yeah,
yes, if you talk to the progressive, the intellectuals, yeah, they'll go with you,
yeah,
but
but
they're
this
not,
is not even that true. Most of the intellectuals are pan-Arabist, jihadist.
That's true as well. Yes, but
This
they'll
is
accept your ideas. They'll understand what you're talking about. But for the average person in an Arab country, they would give you arguments like,
yeah,
if your leader makes a mistake, they just go home. Our leader has to live with the mistake. And sometimes he will die because of the mistake,
yeah. This
because
is
they have a natural order type of thing.
yeah. This is a point you may disagree with me, but they could not have nationalism, democracy, because they don't have nationalism. In my opinion, you cannot have
Hmm.
democracy without nationalism. These things are go hand in hand, and because they are tribal, not nationalistic, it's impossible that they will have democracy. You must have
I agree with that. Yeah,
you
I
must
think it.
you must
Yeah,
have nationalism for democracy.
yeah. I
Yeah,
think you have to have a base level of unity before you can start having democracy. Yeah, because otherwise,
democracy.
like you
Yeah,
say,
it's like a luxury you can afford when you have
yeah,
nationalism.
yeah, exactly.
Same with liberties and freedoms and all those things. I don't believe in liberalism. I believe that your freedoms are something you can afford if you have nationalism. Then you're free in your domain to pursue, your goals.
But
Potentially, at
yeah,
least.
yeah. Ideally, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, just briefly going back to the oil thing in the UK. Yeah, there isn't a ton of oil and gas. I think it's the
Yeah.
third highest in Europe, and I think Silver, were you saying about the Scottish independence?
Yeah, I thought if it's in the north, you will have a lot of
Yeah, it's a
foreign
good.
subversion to make them split apart.
It's a
Yeah.
really good point
Yeah.
because
Iran
there
is
is.
involved with the S&P. They are talking a lot.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the oil and gas, there is oil and gas not just up in the north, but definitely the majority of it is up here,
Hmm.
in the well above the Shetland Islands, out near the Orkney Islands. Obviously, the most is Norway over sort of over here.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely, I think the EU would love to split Scotland off from the UK because then they wouldn't have to rely on Russia so much for gas.
And
Because
China and Iran, Mossad told me, I do not know if it's mistake, you probably will know more. isn't there is some technicality that if Scotland split from the Britain, you may lose your Security Council veto in the UN?
I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know.
You will no longer be the United Kingdom of,
Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Yeah.
and all that. It would be a different country, and then they could say, well, how come they've got it's
Yeah. I
only a
mean,
small country now, like what?
well, but the thing is, what
There will
people
be
have to
people who
understand.
will try to unseat you for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know the
But
process. I don't know how it works.
no, you're right that people will try. But what people have to understand is England is 92% of the UK. So
Yes. No, I do understand.
when we're talking about Scotland leaving, we're talking about I think 7% of the UK and about
Yes.
2% of the UK's GDP.
Yes. No, I understand. I know
They do
that.
not care about the facts.
Yeah.
They want the technicality to kick the
Yeah,
UK
well
out.
then yeah,
Exactly.
that's fine.
That's exactly. And also, Scotland is strategically important. Its location, its
Yeah,
oil, its there are
Exotic weapons.
all sorts of interesting weapons and listening stations that that location can give you in terms of. And I'm sure the NATO relies heavily on Scotland
it
for.
does. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think our first alert fighter station is up here. So whenever a Russian aircraft comes in, they
There you are.
send
Yeah,
it's
makes
somewhere up
sense.
here.
So it's a very important place, and it's also, if you look at the historically, the Scottish contribution has always been disproportionate
Yeah,
to its
yep,
size. So
absolutely it has. I would be. I'm not gonna lie. I would be pissed and heartbroken if they managed to break Scotland away.
You should not let them.
I
yeah,
I do
I can
everything I
understand
can.
those all those sentiments, but I think on the whole, I mean, from my point of view, I'm not Scottish. I can't tell them what to do, but I think they've benefited from it. So much of their achievement is thanks to this union.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people, the people that are voting for Scotland to leave, you've got a small number of kind of hyper Scottish nationalists as opposed to British nationalists, but mostly it's just your typical woke lefty that will do anything to piss off the people they want to piss off. And the
Is
ironic thing
is
is that
this is this because of Brexit, or it's some sort of
no,
ancient? The UK is the British is the eternal oppressor in the woke
yeah,
hierarchy.
it's kind of that thing. So the woke people, it would be because of Brexit. The sort of really pro Scottish nationalism as opposed to British nationalism people, that would be kind of an old fashioned. England was always the big oppressor 300 years ago, so that's why we want our own country. But yeah, the majority, I would say, are just people that are extremely woke. Uh, they support Nicola Sturgeon and all her crazy woke policies, and because we left the EU, they kind of want to leave us because they enjoyed being part of the EU, even though they didn't benefit at all. It was a net loss for us to be in the EU, to kind of get back at the
Yeah,
UK.
Israelis tend to agree that I think most Israelis were pro Brexit if they knew what it meant.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we were paying hundreds of billions of pounds into the EU, and we were getting back, sort of 30% of that. And I just don't see the point. Like we're an island, so we're a very different. We're a different culture. We have a different language. Strategically, we have many advantages that a lot of countries here don't. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're the Czech Republic, I could kind of understand you joining the EU. But
Yeah.
if you're the richest and most powerful nation, and at the time you had the biggest army, and you have a very strategic land base, I just can't see why on earth people would have wanted the UK to join the EU. I mean, it just made no sense. Especially, you fight 2 world wars, you lose 2 generations of men, and now we have Germany again trying to take
Mm.
over Europe, and we just offered it to them on a plate. So I'm glad we left.
Yeah. The German question. I always wind up when I have Nazis on the chat. I always ask them if they have a final solution to the German question.
Yeah, by
Just
the
to troll
way,
them.
these people with all their esoteric history, they
Yeah.
will never tell that Kaiser Wilhelm II basically drove on
know.
the train Lenin personally through Switzerland. They took him to Germany. Then, with armed guards by German soldiers, brought them to the front line in Russia to reintroduce them into Tsarist Russia to start the revolution. Gave them a full train cart full of gold for starting the army. They will
Wow.
never mention. You did not know this?
No, I didn't know that bit. I knew everything except for the gold.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
never heard
so
of the gold, but Sylvan normally knows what he's talking about. We can check
Yeah.
it.
yeah, you will never mention how Germany basically psyoped the Commie Revolution to make a regime change to stop the war.
It
You
was
will never,
briefly mentioned on AA
Wow.
stream.
yeah,
He
but
did
they
mention
will
this,
not
yeah.
give them it a
No,
serious
no,
weight
no.
ever.
No, it has to, everything has to come back to that particular group, as they like
The
to say.
international bankers.
Yeah, the merchants. It's the
Well,
merchants.
I tell you what. Listen, let's talk about the international bankers.
Winston stopped writing, partly because he was suffering from cramp. He did not know what had made him pour out this stream of rubbish